Hi everyone, very good afternoon and welcome back to CrackGradeB. So today in the module of ABM, we are going to do the topic of working capital finance, and I have chosen two subtopics to be covered today, right? So before I should start with the working capital finance as a topic, let us discuss a few things that are in your syllabus as well, and that would be easier for us to, what you can say, relate with the topic, right? So number one, what do we mean by working capital? Whenever we talk about working capital, or suppose number one is capital का मतलब क्या? Whenever I want to start a particular business, I need some seed fund to continue with my business, right? And that is my capital. Now capital can be further subdivided into two parts. Number one is going to be your fixed capital and number two is going to be your करंट कैपिटल या फिर आप उसको वर्किंग कैपिटल भी कह सकते हैं. नाउ फिक्स कैपिटल वेयर वी आर गोइंग टू यूज इट, कहाँ पे हम इसको यूज करेंगे? सो फॉर एग्जांपल आई हैव टू परचेज एन एसी, आई हैव टू परचेज अ मशीनरी, आई हैव टू परचेज फर्नीचर्स. So that is somewhere I'm going to use my fixed capital, right? Now this fixed capital would help me to achieve production. बट प्रोडक्शन करने के लिए सपोज इफ आई हैव अ फैक्ट्री, मेरे पास एक फैक्ट्री है और मुझे प्रोडक्शन स्टार्ट करना है, आई नीड टू परचेज रॉ मटेरियल, राइट? आई नीड टू एक्सटेंड क्रेडिट टू माई डेटर्स. क्रेडिट देना पड़ेगा. इफ योर बिजनेस, इफ योर इंडस्ट्री वर्क्स लाइक दैट, अगर आपकी इंडस्ट्री उस तरीके से काम करती है तो आपको भी उस तरीके से काम करना पड़ेगा एंड यू हैव टू एक्सटेंड क्रेडिट टू योर डेटर्स. दैट इज नंबर टू. So now these raw material related capital which I have invested, these debtors related capital which I have invested, some part I also have in my cash, ठीक है? So these are all form part of my working capital. They are important to run day to day business of my entity, ठीक है? Daily basis पे अगर आपको business अपना run करना है, then you need working capital. Number one. नाउ वर्किंग कैपिटल के दो फर्दर सब डिविजन्स होते हैं. एक होता है ग्रॉस वर्किंग कैपिटल एंड देन व्हाट वी हैव इज कॉल्ड एज योर नेट वर्किंग कैपिटल, ठीक है? समटाइम्स दीज कॉन्सेप्ट्स आर यूज. सो नॉर्मली इन जनरल इफ आई टॉक अबाउट वर्किंग कैपिटल का मतलब समझा गया है करंट असेट लेस करंट लाइबिलिटीज. दिस इज वॉट वी हैव अंडरस्टूड. अगर कोई मुझे बोलेगा वर्किंग कैपिटल तो इसका मतलब मैं यही समझूंगी करंट असेट लेस करंट लाइबिलिटीज. नाउ बट when somebody asks me what is gross working capital, gross working capital क्या होगा, then I'll only talk about my current assets. तब मैं सिर्फ अपने करंट असेट्स की बात करूंगी एंड करंट असेट्स इज इक्विवेलेंट टू ग्रॉस वर्किंग कैपिटल, राइट? अगर नेट वर्किंग कैपिटल के बारे में बात करेंगे तो फिर क्या बात होगी? करंट असेट less your current liabilities is going to be your net working capital if I define it in a much better way. So these are going to be the definitions. Now any kind of industry obviously needs two kind of capital. Number one is the fixed capital and number two is your working capital, ठीक है? Working capital में for example you might know various kind of entities that use CC limit or called as cash credit limit. अब ये कैश क्रेडिट लिमिट वो क्यों यूज करते हैं? फॉर एग्जाम्पल कैश क्रेडिट, फॉर एग्जाम्पल योर ओवरड्राफ्ट, ठीक है? ये सब क्या है? दे आर ऑल द सोर्सेज ऑफ वर्किंग कैपिटल फाइनेंस. ओके, सो नाउ द नेक्स्ट थिंग दैट वी कैन टॉक अबाउट इज, ये है हमारी कंपनीज. दे कैन बी इन वेरियस सेक्टर्स obviously, but they all need finance. And who's going to provide the finance? Your banks. Okay? Who's going to provide the finance? Banks are going to provide the finance. So when bank provides finance to the industry for short-term needs, जब आपके शॉर्ट टर्म नीड्स को फुलफिल करने के लिए बैंक आपको फाइनेंस प्रोवाइड कराए, देन we know it as your working capital finance, ठीक है? हम इसको कैसे समझते हैं? फिर working capital finance समझते हैं. Now in today's topic we are going to talk about number one, discounting of bills, right? What are the RBI guidelines regarding that? And we'll also talk about, there is a subtopic in your syllabus related to IT entities, IT and software. उनसे रिलेटेड वर्किंग कैपिटल फाइनेंस के बारे में. So these two things we are going to understand this particular topic, very small short topics. We are going to understand this by help of MCQs, right? So let us start now. Just give me a moment. After this, we will also have a topic of trades, that is trade discounting, but वो हम बाद में देखेंगे. Just a second. Okay. So number one question that we have is, bill discounting policy should be approved by Board of Directors, Risk Management Committee, Audit Committee, Nomination and Remuneration Committee. ठीक है, आपसे पूछा है bill discounting policy. Again, this question is going to appear in various what you can say your topics. Fine. Because here what we are trying to analyze is the authority of board of directors. Board of directors related authority हम check करना चाहते हैं, and that is why bill discounting की जो आपकी policy होगी वो board of directors decide करेंगे कि हम किसके bills discount कर रहे हैं, what is the interest rate we are going to charge, what is the collateral, something that we might seek in this particular scenario. So all of this is going to be decided by the board of directors. Now just give me a second, please. Okay. Now it should be fine. So now we have question number 2. Okay. Now question number 2, consider the following statement with respect to letter of credit and mark the one which is not true. So you have to consider the following statements and then you have to see that which one of the following is not true, right? You have to identify. So we will talk about letter of credit as well, but first let's look at the options which are given to us. So banks should open letters of credit only in respect of genuine commercial and trade transactions. Who's opening the letters of credit? Obviously banks, right? In respect of commercial trade transactions of their borrowers, constituents who have been sanctioned regular credit facilities by the bank. Okay, noted. Now next, banks should not extend fund-based or non-fund-based facilities like opening of letter of credit, providing guarantees and acceptance to non-constituent borrowers. Okay. Next is banks can choose to extend fund-based or non-fund-based facilities providing guarantees and acceptance to non-constituent borrowers, and banks may discount bills drawn by beneficiary only if the bank has sanctioned regular fund-based credit facility to the beneficiary. So आप बिल डिस्काउंट तभी कर सकते हैं जब आपने रेगुलर फंड बेस्ड क्रेडिट फैसिलिटीज दी हुई हैं. Although the option is already given to you, option answer आपको already दिया हुआ है, but still we will see that what they are talking about. Now you see here we are talking about that to whom you have given regular credit facilities. So now the options revolve around two kinds of borrowers. One, to whom you have already given facilities, right? Regular credit facilities has been extended by you, and the another to whom you have not provided regular credit facilities, and then you have to decide in between कि आपको क्या करना है. So now let us look at the answer, and answer says that banks can choose to extend the fund based or non-fund based facilities to non-constituent borrowers as well. So see, over here why this option was not correct? Because हम कह रहे थे कि बैंक को देना ही नहीं है, and यहाँ पे we have provided certain discretion to the banks. हमने बैंक को ऑप्शन दे दिया कि अगर आपकी मर्जी है तो आप करिए, नहीं मर्जी है तो ना करिए, ठीक है। यहाँ पे तो आप दे ही सकते हैं, बट यहाँ पे you have got the discretion that you can extend such kind of facilities to the non-constituent borrowers as well. That means to whom you have not provided regular sort of fund facilities. Okay. Now we have got question number 3. This is bills purchased, discounted, negotiated under letter of credit shall be assigned the risk weight. देखो, any kind of loans that you have provided, किसी भी तरीके का अगर आपने लोन दिया हुआ है या किसी भी तरीके की आपने फैसिलिटीज दी हुई हैं एटसेट्रा एटसेट्रा, यू हैव टू डिसाइड द रिस्क वेट. आपको ये पता लगाना है कि इस चीज में हमारा कितना रिस्क है, बिकॉज as per that only you will be able to create the provisions, you will be able to know that how risky this proposition is and whether you should go for it or not. And even if the person defaults, then what is going to be the liability onto you? So these are all the considerations that we do while extending letter of credit related facilities. पहली चीज तो ये. अब now let's look at the option. तो रिस्क वेट्स कैसे एप्लीकेबल होंगे? एज इज नॉर्मली एप्लीकेबल टू इंटरबैंक एक्सपोजर्स, जो इन्वेस्टमेंट्स पे एप्लीकेबल होते हैं, क्लेम्स ऑन प्राइमरी डीलर्स एंड क्लेम्स ऑन कॉर्पोरेट, राइट? सो ओवर हियर सी, if you look at the answer, हमको पता है as is applicable to interbank exposures, right? When you extend the facilities, credit facilities to the other banks as well, so same risk category, we are going to keep the letter of credit as well. But अगर आप investments देखें, investments are going to have a different category. Investments are your investments that you have made is your asset, and it is what you can say is much more secured as compared to the letter of credit. ठीक है, तो इन दोनों के risk weight तो same हो ही नहीं सकते, पहली चीज ये. Next thing is primary dealers and corporates, right? They have got varied diversification, and hence the risk weight that you will assign to corporates and primary dealers are going to be in distinction with what are the risk weights that you are going to assign to LC. Although this is the part of regulation, but I'm just saying ki if you have read 10 things, so you can obviously guess the 11th thing easily. So this is why we are talking about like this. Now let us see bills purchased discounted under LC, where the payment is the beneficiary is not made under reserve will be treated as an exposure on LC issuing bank and not on the borrower. All clean negotiations as indicated the above, they are going to be assigned the risk weight as is applicable to the interbank exposures for the capital adequacy purpose. Capital adequacy purpose का मतलब क्या? Because when we decide that what is the minimum amount of capital a bank should hold, there is a very important thing that we have to determine, and it is called as the risk weighted assets. आपको आपकी risk weighted assets पता होनी चाहिए before you start calculating what is the minimum amount of capital you should have. कितना minimum capital होना चाहिए, उससे पहले हमें ये पता होना चाहिए that what are risk weighted assets that we have, and that is why हम assets को risk weights assign करते हैं. So now we have done this. Let's see question number 4. So LC forms should be issued to the customers under joint signatures of board of directors, joint signatures of independent directors, audit committee, and bank authorized officials. Now these things can confuse you, right? But over here it has been said, it has been written in the guidelines that your LC forms can be under the signatures of bank authorized officials. okay, who are authorized to sign such kind of documents. Here we do not have such kind of restrictions of independent directors or audit committee. And let me tell you one more thing, audit committee is for the checking purpose. They are not involved in the day-to-day business operations or day-to-day operational decisions that a bank is going to take. So wherever audit committee appears, you should know that it is a wrong option anyway. Next we have, so factoring is of two types, ठीक है. Factoring आपकी दो तरीके की होती है, with recourse and without recourse, ठीक है. With recourse और without recourse का मतलब, in case of with recourse, the buyer, the person who has obviously given the document has to take in all the kinds of risk. Suppose I have debtors, I have a company, okay, and I have assigned my debtors to a factor, to a third party, to discount those and to provide me funding, ठीक है. If I have taken with recourse factoring, ठीक है, उस केस में क्या होगा, I am going to bear all the losses. But if my funding or my factoring is without recourse, then in that case, factor or the financial institution who's going to discount my bills of exchange, they are going to bear all the losses. इसका मतलब with recourse और without recourse में फर्क सिर्फ इतना है कि losses कौन bear करेगा. If it is without recourse, your financial institution or factor, they are going to bear the losses up. वो bear करेंगे losses if there has been a default of payment. That means if somebody has not paid, तब आपके banks या financial institution उस चीज को take in करेंगे. Now let's see. So consider the following statement with respect to without recourse clause and mark the incorrect one. So practice of drawing bills of exchange clause without recourse and issuing letters of credit bearing the legend without recourse should be discouraged. Okay, banks may negotiate bills drawn under letter of credit on with recourse or without recourse basis. मतलब आप negotiate कर सकते हैं, okay, as per their discretion and based on their perception about credit worthiness. Next, restriction on purchase or discount of other bills, that is the bills drawn otherwise on without recourse basis, will continue. So restriction on purchase or discount of other bills on without recourse basis will continue. Now none of the above. You have been asked incorrect one. कौन सा statement incorrect है? And in such a situation, look at all the options and they are the guidelines that what you have to consider about the without recourse clause, and they all are true. Now let us look at this particular question. We'll try to understand what they have written over here. See, so the practice of drawing bills of exchange without recourse and issuing letters of credit bearing the legend without recourse should be discouraged, because such notations deprive the negotiating bank of the right of recourse it has against the drawer. इसका मतलब क्या? I have explained you what is the difference between with recourse and without recourse. मतलब हमको समझ में आ गया that it is all about who is going to bear the risk. ठीक है, कौन risk को bear करेगा. अब अगर आप लिख दोगे, डॉक्यूमेंट के फेस पे लिख दोगे दैट इट इज विदाउट रिकोर्स, देन द बैंक डज नॉट हैव अ चांस ऑफ नेगोशिएशन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर मैंने रेंट एग्रीमेंट में लिख दिया 30,000 रुपीज लिख दिया, नाउ नोबडी हैज अ चांस ऑफ नेगोशिएशन. ठीक है, अब हमारे पास नेगोशिएशन का तो चांस है ही नहीं, वो राइट तो चला ही गया हमारा. So that is why they are saying that let us provide the banks the option to negotiate that who's going to bear the risk. And this is the whole objective of this question and along with this particular guideline. So on a review, it has been decided that the banks may negotiate the bills with recourse, without recourse as per their discretion. However, the restriction on purchase or discount of other bills, that is the bills drawn otherwise than on LC on without recourse basis, will continue to be in फोर्स। तो हमने लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट से रिलेटेड बिल्स के लिए हमने आपको ये डिस्क्रिशन दे दिया है, बट बाकी बिल्स के लिए विच आर नॉट एसोसिएटेड विद लेटर ऑफ क्रेडिट, सच अ रेस्ट्रिक्शन ऑफ mentioning without recourse onto the bill is going to continue. तो हमें सिर्फ इतना याद रखना है that letter of credit के केस में this restriction has been removed and now you have the option to negotiate as per your own wish. Now next we have banks should not purchase or discount, negotiate accommodation bill, rediscount bills earlier discounted by NBFCs, service sector bills, and all of the above. So why this question has been framed? So that you have a bird eye view of all the things that a bank cannot do with respect to such kind of bills. Accommodation bill का मतलब क्या होता है? Where suppose you and me we do not have a relationship of give and take, ठीक है ना, मुझे आपको कोई अमाउंट देना है ना आपको मुझसे कोई अमाउंट लेना है. We do not have a trading relationship, but I am just accepting a bill of exchange so that you can get finance. ठीक है, आपको फाइनेंस मिल जाए because we have a bill of exchange related relationship drawn already and you can get that bill of exchange discounted. So such kind of bills are called as accommodation bill, where the substance of the transaction is missing. That means there has been no exchange of goods and services. On that basis bill of exchange is not drawn. It has been just been accepted by the other party so that the party number one can get the finance. इसका मतलब ऐसे आप समझ सकते हैं जैसे कि हमने एक फर्जी बिल बना दिया, ठीक है, फर्जी बिल बना दिया, सामान वामान कुछ नहीं बेचा, इट वाज जस्ट मेड सो दैट अगला पर्सन जो है वो फाइनेंस ले सके. So such kind of bills should not be purchased, discounted, negotiated, service sector bills, or such kind of bills which have already been what you can say discounted by the NBFCs. तो अगर NBFCs ने already discount किया हुआ है उनको, so you should not go and take that particular risk up for yourself. आपको आपके खुद के लिए नहीं लेना है. Don't go there, right? So these are some of the restrictions that you have to remember. Now next we have banks may consider sanction of working capital limits to IT and software industries on the basis of what? So generic guidelines हैं, promoter group का track record कैसा है, management team का composition as well as the infrastructure का composition. These are all the things that you have to consider before giving the working capital finance to the IT companies. Now in case of IT and software industry, borrowers enjoying working capital limits of, now you have been asked the limit from the banking system, the guidelines regarding the loan system would be applicable. So here the limit is 10 crores. Now let's look what they are saying. Just a second. See, so in case of the borrowers, we are talking about the IT industry borrowers. Those who are having working capital limits up to 2 crores, assessment may be made at 20% of the projected turnover. इसका मतलब अगर आपको वर्किंग कैपिटल लिमिट्स अप टू 2 करोड़ दी गई हैं, 2 करोड़ तक दी गई हैं, तो हम आपको जो वर्किंग कैपिटल फाइनेंस एक्सटेंड करेंगे वो किस बेसिस पे करेंगे? आपका टर्नओवर कितना होना चाहिए? Your turnover multiplied by 20% is something that we are going to use for extending you working capital. हम देखेंगे, suppose if your turnover is 20 crores, so we are going to multiply 20% of it and 4 crores comes as your working capital limit that we can extend to you. But यहाँ पे एक restriction दी गई है that amount related limit is 2 crore rupees. 2 करोड़ तक, मतलब कि आपको फाइनेंस हमने कम ही दिया है एंड दिस फाइनेंस ऑफ अप टू 2 करोड़ हैज बीन गिवन बेस्ड ऑन योर टर्नओवर. आपके टर्नओवर का 20% एंड दिस इज द कैलकुलेशन व्हिच वी हैव मेड एंड ऑन द बेसिस ऑफ सच कैलकुलेशन द अपर लिमिट इज योर 2 करोड़ ओनली. फाइन. Now for the borrowers who are enjoying the working capital limit of 10 crores and above, जो 10 करोड़ या above से limit enjoy कर रहे हैं from the banking system, the guidelines regarding the loan system would be applicable. मतलब अगर आपका working capital जो आपने लिया हुआ है वो 10 करोड़ से ज़्यादा है, then we are not going to treat this under working capital. No. Your working capital loan is 10 crores and above, so you are going to be treated as if you have taken a loan from us and the guidelines of that particular segment is going to be applicable. सिंपल सी बात ये है, 10 करोड़ से ज्यादा का वर्किंग कैपिटल लिया है, वी आर गोइंग टू ट्रीट इट एज लोन एंड द गाइडलाइंस ऑफ लोन्स विल बी एप्लीकेबल. सिंपल. Now, in relation to working capital limits to IT and software, what are the permissions that the banks have been granted with? So, kuch permissions hain. Let's have a look onto it. This is a very small topic and you can just do these questions and that would be enough. So, banks can stipulate reasonable amount to promoters' contribution towards margin. Yes. Banks may obtain collateral security. Yes. Rate of interest as prescribed for general category may be levied. Okay? So, these are all the discretions that the bank has. Obviously, promoters से आप funds का demand कर सकते हो, collateral का demand आप कर सकते हो, right? And then you can also demand the rate of interest as has been prescribed for the general category of borrowers. So that particular kind of discretion related to charging of rate of interest is something that you also have, right? So these are all the facilities. And lastly, we have in relation to working capital finance to IT and software industry, the borrowers with working capital limits of up to 2 crores. Assessment is going to be made on what basis? This we have done 20% of the projected turnover. तो जो भी आपका projected turnover है उसका 20% and this is something we are going to take as a limit. ठीक है, ये हम आपकी limit लेंगे. Basically what you have to draw out of it is that if we are extending you a working capital limit of up to 2 crore, this limit is going to be based on your turnover. ठीक है, ये आपके turnover के ऊपर base होगी. So this is it in this particular class. Thank you so much for joining in.